So every anime season, I'm not sure about which shows to start, which shows to do. And some shows I start, then drop, and then finish off when they finish off. And this is one of them. And you know what? I'm fairly happy I did finish it. And it kind of introduced me to the series and got me going on a few other entries in the series, which are really worthwhile. So what show am I talking about? Well, today, we're going to be talking about Macross Delta.
一度だけの恋なら君の中で遊ぼうわがままなキスをしよう
Before I even get into anything with this series, the first thing I really want to touch on is the concept, okay? It sort of ties into the plot that has been ongoing in the series for a long time. And this concept is very simple. Singing is a weapon, sort of, we'll call it that. And in this, we'll call it this anime. So there's this thing called the Varja Confession. It controls people's minds and basically makes them go batshit crazy and shoot everything in sight. And the only way to fight this effectively is to have a group of girls called the Valkyries, I'll just call them that, sing in front of the people. And that somehow makes the thing magically stop. And my response to that is what the main character said within the first episode. So yeah, I mean, like, that's sort of my response to that. There's not much else to be said on that. Alright, so the first thing you want to know about Macross Delta is that, well, it is the most recent in a long-going series. I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Macross. I'm just gonna say Macross, and hopefully you guys yell at me in the comments because that's a thing. And so this series has been going on for a long time. Here I actually have a list. The first one was Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, which came out in 1982. So this is, oh wow, this is the 25th anniversary of this series. So that's a pretty impressive thing right there. So what are my thoughts on Macross Delta? Well, the first thing I want to get to is the character. Now, at the beginning, we're introduced to our actually all three of our main characters meet within the very first episode. You have Hayate, who really is to me the main character because I feel like the show is told from his perspective, if not anyone else's. But on the same time, you have Freya and you have Mirage, who are the two side characters. Freya is the girl that sings, Mirage flies through the sky. And so basically, those are your three main characters. There's a little bit of a love triangle that develops there. I'm not gonna tell you who he ends up with, but I'm gonna tell you that before it was even told who he was with, I was Team Mirage from the beginning, and that is irrelevant to who he gets in the end or yada yada. You also have other noted side characters like Arid, who is the team captain for all the flyer. You have Bogue, you have all the girls who sing. I could go through the list. There is a lot of side characters. There's all the enemies that are actually fairly well developed. You have all of the main support characters on the good guys side who are all developed. One of my favorite characters is Messer because he was in a lot of really cool scenes, and I kind of like his backstory. And there was a ship there, and I kind of like that too. Apart from that, let's talk about the plot. So the plot is basically there's these infections, yada yada, and obviously at first they seem like stuff that are happening at random, but it turns out someone is controlling them. I won't spoil who the bad guys are right away, but basically they're controlling the Varge, and they're basically going to declare war on the Nuns Federation, and then there's going to be this giant war, and then shit's gonna hit the fan, and then by the end there's going to be a giant battle. Basically your typical anime plot progression, which is fine. And I find the characters were really well developed. I find that some characters could have been developed a bit more. I would have really liked that. I really enjoyed the flashback episode where we got to see where everything started from, because you're sort of introduced midway, like what's happening. Sorry, no. You're introduced to Freya and Hayate, who are just basically entered the Valkyries, but everyone else has been there for a while, and there's been all this background story that you're sort of not caught up on, so you don't know everything that's happening. So I find that flashback episode to have been really useful. How does this start out? Well, at the beginning, you have Hayate, who's just some freight guy who got fired from his job, and he's working his last day where he meets Freya, who is legal. Well, well, she's a stowaway, okay, on a ship, and he finds her, and then he helps her out because why not? It's the last day on his job. He got fired already, so he doesn't really care. Which then they run into Mirage, and then there's a Varge infection that breaks out. This all happens within the first episode, so if you aren't sure what I'm talking about, just watch it. It's worth your time. And basically, Hayate gets sort of introduced into the Wild Carrier as a pilot because during that fight that happens on that planet, he gets into a plane ship robot thingy, and we'll call it it's called a Valkyrie. So he gets into a Valkyrie, and basically he's pretty decent, turns out. And Freya sings, and then eventually she auditions for Valkyrie, and these are like the basic plot points that you'd be expecting. And from that, it builds on. So the animation, well, let's talk about the animation. The animation is very, very nice. The really high points for me are the flight animation. Like, I have watched anime where there's been space battles and all that, but I've never seen an anime where this happens. So, I mean, like, the animation during the fight scenes is really incredible. The animation for the singing scenes and all that, I really like it. It puts, what am I gonna say, okay? It was enjoyable. I enjoyed watching the show. I might seem crazy for saying that, but I really did enjoy watching this show. I really enjoyed cheering on my ship, and I really just like enjoyed seeing things how it progressed. And there's a little hint here or there. It may be confusing at first if you're new to the Macross series, what's happening. I do recommend watching Macross Frontier, but you do not have to watch it. In fact, I watched Macross Delta. Following that, I went to go watch Macross Frontier, and I was like, damn, the animation. Let's talk about the sound design. The sound design is really, really nice, okay? This planes sound how they should, the fight scenes, the explosions, all of that is on key, like really on key. Which brings me to the music, which was really good, actually. Like, they're all like girl pop group song stuff. I don't know how to describe it, but it was really enjoyable. Like, I would listen to music and not be like, oh, they're not singing this stupid song, or like they're not singing a song yet. No, I'd be like, oh, cool, this is actually a song, and it's like, oh, cool, and they're flying to the beat and all that, and it gets you in the zone. You're like, yeah, you know what, I can see this happening. I find the music really suits the scene. There's only a few times where the singing kind of felt out of place, but most of the time it generally hits its mark. So with all that in mind, I would definitely give this show a stream recommendation. I do not know where you can find this show to stream it. I'm not sure if it's something you should buy, in my opinion, but it's definitely worth taking the time to watch. Why? Because it's fun. I mean, the animation is on point, the singing is there, I like the soundtrack, the overall plot is slightly predictable, there is a slight plot twist, but it is an enjoyable show to watch. So if you have some time to kill and you just want to have fun, and just enjoy a show, I would highly recommend Macross Delta. So with that, I'm going to give Macross Delta a 7.8 out of 10. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please tell me what shows you'd like me to possibly cover next. This is probably going to be a bi-weekly thing, and I will see you all in the next one.